He called my hands too rough. Now the city wears their work like gold. The same palms he mocked cut the ribbon he applauded. Funny how silence builds louder monuments than pride, and how justice can sound like scissors through silk. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. My name is Calvin. I'm 55 years old, and this is how I learned that silence can speak louder than revenge. The morning light hit the metal doors of City Hall like a blessing. Fresh paint, dew on the concrete, and a soft murmur from the crowd waiting outside. I could smell the polish on the brass handles, the faint sweetness of flowers from the city garden nearby. My son stood a few feet away, watching me like he didn't quite believe what he was seeing. Those same hands he once called too rough were now holding the scissors that would open a new beginning. He had told me once, and in a tone too sharp for his young age, "Dad, your hands look old, like they've been through too much." I remember staring at them that night, veins raised, skin darkened by years of labor. Each scar had a memory, each callus a story. But I didn't defend myself. I just smiled, nodded, and let the boy think rough meant useless. Back then, I was working long shifts at the Department of Public Works, building parks, fixing broken benches, repainting playground rails the city forgot. Folks drove past without seeing the men behind the work. We were ghosts with tool belts. But I always kept my paperwork clean, logged every hour, every material order, every project. I knew records mattered more than recognition. Filed at the county recorder's office, case number 225-11873. That number became my quiet proof that sweat could leave a signature, just like ink. Every Sunday after church, I'd stop by the construction site behind City Hall. Nobody asked me to. I'd walk through the scaffolding, checking cement bags, making sure the foundation was leveled right. My supervisor, a man named Jenkins, used to shake his head. "Calvin, you're not on the clock," he'd say. "I know," I'd reply, "but my city is." He never argued. Some folks understand the language of duty. One afternoon, I caught my reflection in the window of the new wing. My hands looked tired, but certain. The kind of hands that could lift, guide, and finish what others only planned. That's when I decided, if I ever got the chance, I'd make sure these hands left something permanent, something my son couldn't ignore. At home, I didn't mention it. My boy, Marcus, was busy chasing dreams behind a screen, always talking about branding, optics, and social status. He'd wrinkle his nose when I came in from work, covered in dust. "Dad, you don't have to keep working like that," he said once. "There are easier ways to make money now." "I'm not chasing money," I told him. "I'm building something that lasts." He laughed, soft but condescending. "Yeah, sure. Like a park bench?" That laugh stayed with me longer than it should have. The city was planning a new community center, a big one, designed to serve the east side, where kids like Marcus used to play before the gangs took over the basketball courts. I submitted a proposal, quiet and detailed. Nobody noticed at first, but the woman in charge of the public outreach, Ms. Lawson, did. "Mr. Reed," she said, calling my name during a late committee meeting. "This design, these budget notes, you did all this on your own?" "Yes, ma'am." She leaned back, smiling. "You know, this might actually work." I didn't smile back. I just nodded, thanked her, and went home. I didn't tell Marcus. Some things grow better in silence. Months passed. I worked extra hours, guided crews half my age, taught them how to seal concrete properly so it wouldn't crack under the first rain. Some listened, some didn't, but I knew time would prove the difference. The night before the opening, I walked through the empty halls of the center. The lights flickered, reflecting off the new floors. My footsteps echoed softly, steady, proud. My name wasn't on the plaque, not yet, but it was in the blueprints, the purchase orders, and the inspection reports. All filed, all traceable. That night, Marcus called. "You still going to that ribbon thing tomorrow?" "Yeah," I said. "You should come." He hesitated. "I don't know, Dad. Stuff like that's not really my scene." "It's your city," I told him. Might as well see what you're living in. He sighed. All right, maybe. When I arrived the next morning, he was there, dressed neat, phone in hand, half interested. I stood near the podium, waiting for the mayor to finish her speech. She spoke about renewal, community, and unseen hands. My heart skipped at that phrase, unseen hands. Then she turned, smiled at me, and said, "And today, we honor one of those hands." The crowd clapped. Cameras flashed. Marcus lowered his phone. I stepped forward. The scissors gleamed silver in my hand. The ribbon stretched tight, crimson and new. Behind me, the city seal caught the sunlight. I felt every year of labor resting in that single motion. The hiss of concrete mixers, the weight of hammers, the sting of wind on late shifts. Then snip. The sound was soft, almost sacred. The ribbon fluttered down, and applause rose like a tide. People cheered, children waved flags. Marcus didn't move at first. He just stared, like he was seeing me for the first time. When the mayor shook my hand, she whispered, "Thank you for everything, Mr. Reed." I nodded, feeling the warmth of her words sink into the scars of my palms. Marcus finally walked up. "Dad," he started, voice low, "you built this?" "Piece by piece," I said. He looked at my hands again, different this time. His eyes softened. "Guess rough hands build smooth." "Futures." I smiled but said nothing. Some lessons don't need a reply. That afternoon, after the crowd dispersed, I stood alone in the sunlight. The sound of children laughing filled the air. I could almost hear the echoes of every nail, every brushstroke, every sigh. I thought about all the men I'd worked with who never got a ceremony, never got their names spoken into a microphone. And I promised quietly, their work would never fade as long as I was here to remember. Marcus joined me again, hands in his pockets. "You ever gonna retire?" I chuckled. "Maybe when the city stops growing." He smiled. "Guess that means never." I looked down at my hands, the same rough hands he'd once dismissed. They caught the light now, proud and unashamed. And for the first time, I realized revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just builds. Marcus drove us home in silence, the kind that doesn't sting anymore, just sits in the air, warm and thoughtful. Sunlight flickered through the car windows, catching the small flecks of sawdust still clinging to my jacket. I brushed them off, smiling. "Dad," he said finally, eyes fixed on the road, "I didn't know you did all that." "You weren't supposed to," I answered. "Wasn't about credit." He nodded, quiet. The city rolled by, outside. Kids biking down sidewalks, shop owners sweeping porches, a preacher waving from the church steps. My city, my work, my rhythm. When we reached the house, I went straight to the back porch. The boards creaked like they were greeting me. That porch had seen storms, laughter, arguments, and long nights filled with the smell of barbecue and old blues records. I sat down, hands resting on my knees, and listened to the sound of cicadas starting up for the evening. Marcus came out carrying 2 glasses of sweet tea. "Mom used to make it like this," he said. "Yeah," I whispered. "She liked it strong, like her patience." He handed me the glass, then sat beside me. For a few minutes we didn't say a word, just the hum of Atlanta in the distance, the soft beat of life carrying on. "Dad," he said again, "you ever feel angry? I mean, for being overlooked all those years?" I let the question hang in the air. "Anger's easy," I said finally. "Building something takes time. Patience hurts more, but it lasts longer." He smiled faintly. "That's a quote right there." "Maybe," I said, "but I didn't read it anywhere. I lived it." The next morning I found an envelope on the kitchen table. Marcus's handwriting. Inside, a photo from the ribbon cutting. Me, mid-smile, holding the scissors. On the back, he'd written, "For the hands that built the city I grew up in." I sat there, staring at the words until the clock ticked past noon. Then I tucked the photo into a frame beside my wife's picture. 2 reminders that love doesn't always speak loud. Sometimes it's built one board, one brick, at a time. Weeks passed. Folks from the community started recognizing me. A man at the barber shop pointed at me while getting his fade. "Hey, ain't you the brother from that city hall thing?" I laughed. "Maybe." "You the one built that center, right? Man, that place clean. My little girl started piano classes there." That hit me harder than applause. Real work lives in what others use. Mr. Jenkins called too. "Calvin, they want your help on the new park expansion," he said. "You in?" "Always," I said. The younger guys on the crew treated me differently now. Respect in their nods, steadiness in their tone. They started calling me Unc. I didn't correct them. Some titles are earned, not assigned. Marcus visited more often, sometimes bringing lunch, sometimes just stories. One Saturday, he came with a camera. "I'm doing a short doc," he said, "about working class black men who built Atlanta. Want to start with you." I shook my head. "You sure? The world's got plenty of louder voices." "Yeah," he said, "but not enough truth." He set up his tripod on the porch. The mic clipped to my shirt collar like a memory. He asked me questions, simple ones that dug deep. "What kept you going? Why'd you never quit?" I looked straight into the lens. "Because quitting don't fix the road. Somebody's got to keep the lights on, keep the water running, keep the benches safe. That's not glory work. That's legacy work." Later that week, he uploaded the video. I didn't expect much, but within days, it spread. People commented about their own fathers, uncles, granddads, men with tired hands and quiet hearts. One message read, "Your story made me call my dad just to say thank you." Another said, "We see you, brother. We see all of y'all." It wasn't fame. It was visibility, the rare kind that honors the unseen. Still, not everyone was happy. At the next committee meeting, Councilman Bryant made a snide remark. "Seems Mr. Reed's getting more attention than the mayor these days," he said, half joking. I smiled. "Attention fades, sir. The building stays." The room chuckled. But beneath his laughter, I saw something else. Discomfort. Power never likes when dignity shines too naturally. That night, someone left a message on my voicemail. No name, just a voice saying, "You better watch how high you climb, old man." I saved it. Not because I was scared, because records matter. Always have. The next morning, I walked down to the county office and asked a friend, old Mr. Jefferson, to help me check the filing logs. He tapped the screen and frowned. "Well, look here. Somebody tried to alter the project credit line on your paperwork." "Alter how?" I asked. "Removed your signature block. But the timestamp holds. It's already filed, locked under your name. They can't erase that unless they open a new case." He printed it out. I read it carefully, every line neat and clean. "Filed at the county recorder's office. Case number 2025-873. Authorizing engineer, Calvin Reed." That's the thing about truth. It doesn't shout. It just stays put. When I stepped outside, I saw Marcus leaning against the truck. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, holding up the paper. "Just keeping history straight?" He nodded, eyes sharp. "You think someone's trying to take credit?" "Maybe. Doesn't matter. The people already know." He grinned. "Still might make a good part 2 for my doc." I laughed. "You just like stirring the pot." "Maybe," he said. "But folks need to see what respect looks like when someone tries to take it away." We drove back through the neighborhood. Kids ran past the murals near the new center. Bright paint, wide smiles. I slowed the truck and looked. My initials, small but visible, were etched on the corner brick. "Who did that?" I asked. Marcus smiled. "Community kids. Said they wanted folks to remember the builder." I didn't say a word. I just looked up at the clear blue sky over Atlanta, the kind that makes you believe the world still has quiet justice left. That evening, Marcus and I sat at the kitchen table going through old albums, photos of me in hard hats covered in dust, holding wrenches bigger than my forearm. He shook his head, amazed. "You've been holding this legacy all along," he said. "Wasn't mine alone," I replied. "Takes a lot of hands to raise a city." He leaned back, thoughtful. You think rough hands ever heal? Maybe they don't, I said. Maybe that's the point. Scars remind you that something once needed fixing. We both laughed, the kind of laughter that heals a generation. Later that night, I placed the signed paperwork in a folder marked Reed Family. I wrote the date, sealed it, and slid it into the drawer beside my wife's Bible. One day, Marcus would find it. One day, he'd understand how legacy is built, not shouted, but registered. And somewhere in the distance, a gospel song floated through the radio, low, steady, full of promise. I turned the dial up just enough to hear the words, "Hold on, change is coming." I smiled, because it already had. I smiled, because it already had. Change doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just shows up one morning with the mail, in the form of a new opportunity you didn't see coming. 3 weeks after the City Hall ceremony, I got a letter from the mayor's office. Thick envelope, gold seal, my name printed proper. Mr. Calvin Reed. I opened it slow, careful like the moment deserved. Inside was a formal invitation. You are hereby requested to join the City Beautification Advisory Board as a community representative for East Atlanta. I sat back in my chair, never thought the same hands that once carried paint buckets would be asked to sit at a policy table, but here it was, not a gift, recognition. Marcus came home just as I was folding the letter. "What's that?" he asked. "An invitation," I said. "For what?" "To help the city decide what it should look like." He raised an eyebrow. "Dad, that's huge." I smiled. "It's work, just a different kind." He grinned, shaking his head. "You really can't stop building things, huh?" "No," I said. "I just build quieter now." The first meeting was at the new Civic Center, the same one my hands helped create. I wore my old brown suit, polished my shoes till they caught the light. Most of the others in the room were professionals, architects, planners, young consultants with tablets and tight smiles. I sat near the end of the table, notebook open, pen ready. The chairwoman, Ms. Lawson, gave me a nod. "Mr. Reed, glad you could join us." "Appreciate it," I said. "Glad to serve." They spoke in jargon for a while. Zoning, compliance, cost index. I listened more than I talked. Old habit. But when the discussion shifted to community value, I leaned forward. "Ma'am," I said, "value's not just in what's new. It's in what folks already built and loved. A playground, a mural, even a tree someone planted decades ago. That's memory. You pave over that, you lose your people." The room got quiet. Then Ms. Lawson smiled. "Well said, Mr. Reed. We'll keep that in mind." I saw respect in their eyes, the quiet kind that doesn't come from a resume, but from roots. That evening, Marcus called again. "How was the first meeting?" "Long," I said, "but necessary." He laughed. You sound like a politician." "I hope not," I said. "Politicians talk. Builders prove." The next few months moved steady. I spent evenings reviewing proposals, marking maps, giving feedback on where the city needed love, not just design. My house became half office. Folders stacked beside the gospel radio, highlighters mixed with prayer cards. But one morning, I noticed something strange. A memo from Councilman Bryant's office had removed my name from the project acknowledgement section of the City Hall renovation report. Quiet omission, no explanation. I called Ms. Lawson. "Is there an error in the new draft?" I asked. "No," she said carefully. "But it seems Councilman Bryant's team wanted to streamline credits." "Streamline who out?" She hesitated. "You, apparently." I thanked her, hung up, and sat there for a long minute. It wasn't anger, it was déjà vu. The old cycle. Black hands do the work, someone else takes the photo. But this time, I wasn't the same man I'd been years ago. I went to my filing cabinet, pulled out the stamped document, filed at the county recorder's office, case number 225-11873. I made 2 certified copies. One went in my safe, the other went to the Atlanta Tribune, addressed to a reporter I'd known from church, Deacon Harris's niece. I didn't add a note, just the paperwork. By Friday, the headline read, Community Builders Contribution Erased from City Report, but the records tell otherwise. Marcus called almost immediately. Dad, that article? That you? Seems the truth travels faster when it's printed, I said. He laughed hard. You really played it smart this time. Didn't play, I replied. Just filed. The next Monday, Bryant's office issued a correction. No apology, just a retraction. But they restored my name. That was enough. At the next board meeting, Bryant shook my hand, stiff smile and all. Glad to have everything cleared up, Mr. Reed. Paperwork clears things up better than words, I said. He chuckled. You don't miss much, do you? Not when I'm the one who poured the concrete. The room laughed. The tension broke. But I knew, respect, once forced, never truly forgets the push. Marcus kept filming parts of my routine. He called the series Hands of the City. People started watching, not millions, but enough to matter. He'd show footage of me teaching the young crew how to level ground, seal paint, and measure properly. He said the camera loved authenticity. I said the work didn't need it. It already shined. One afternoon, we stopped by the community center again. Kids were playing basketball, the smell of grilled burgers in the air. An older woman waved from the sidewalk. Mr. Reed, they finally fixed the benches. I smiled. They were never broken, ma'am, just waiting for new paint. She laughed. Well, the city finally did right. I looked around. Sometimes the city is just us. That night, Marcus uploaded a new video, me saying that line. It went viral locally. A radio host quoted it. The mayor reposted it. And suddenly, invitations came again, this time from schools, youth groups, even a trade union asking me to speak. At first, I said no. Public speaking never sat right with me. But Marcus insisted. Dad, you've been telling stories with your hands all your life. This is just words instead of nails. So I agreed to one, a small technical college in South Atlanta. The crowd was mostly young men and women, fresh out of high school, restless, searching. When I walked up to the podium, I didn't read from the paper. I just looked at them and said, Your work might not trend. Your name might not get posted. But when someone walks safely across a bridge, or a child swings on a playground you fixed, that's your reward. Don't chase applause. Build what matters. The room stood and clapped, loud and genuine, and for the first time I didn't shrink from it. I let it soak in because it wasn't about me anymore. Afterward, a young man approached. Mr. Reed, I almost dropped out. But hearing you talk about keeping records, that hit me. I had just re-enrolled in construction management. I put a hand on his shoulder. Good. Build something that'll outlive you. Driving home that night, I glanced at Marcus. He was quiet again, like the first day at City Hall. You okay? I asked. He nodded. Just proud. The moon hung low over the skyline, silver and calm. My city looked beautiful, not perfect, not polished, but alive. Every streetlight, every sidewalk bore the fingerprints of people who cared more than they were credited. When we pulled into the driveway, Marcus said, You ever regret not doing things the loud way? You know, fighting back harder, calling folks out? I looked at him. Son, if I'd spent my time shouting, I'd have missed the chance to build something worth hearing. He smiled. Guess silence really does speak louder than revenge. I chuckled, stepping out of the truck, only when it's working. As I closed the door, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. Those same rough hands, steady and strong. The city lights glowed behind them, a quiet reminder that justice, real justice, isn't always about winning. Sometimes it's about lasting. And as the night breeze carried the faint hum of gospel radio from a neighbor's porch, I whispered to myself, Let them talk. I'll keep building. Morning light crept through the blinds, soft and gold, sliding across my living room floor like it knew it was welcome there. Atlanta was waking up again, engines humming, pigeons scattering near the curb, gospel murmuring from an open window somewhere down the block. I sat at the table with my coffee cooling beside a pile of papers, permits, blueprints, community notes, meeting agendas. Same rhythm, different chapter. Marcus walked in, half asleep, hoodie on, camera slung around his shoulder. "Mornin', old man." "Mornin', young one," he grinned. "You ready for that interview?" I looked up. "What interview?" "The local news thing, Channel 5. They want to do a segment on community leadership. Ms. Lawson gave them your name." I raised an eyebrow. "They sure they got the right man. I'm no politician. They don't want a politician. They want truth. You." He poured himself coffee, still talking fast. "We'll shoot it at the center. They'll probably ask about the city board, your projects, your legacy. Just be yourself." I smirked. That's the only thing I know how to be. The sun was sharp by the time we reached the community center. Fresh paint still smelled faintly sweet on the outer walls. The reporter, a young woman with a steady voice and neat curls, greeted me with that professional smile. "Mr. Reed, thank you for your time." "My pleasure," I said, shaking her hand. They wired me up, tested the mic, fixed the lighting. Marcus stood behind the camera, proud and silent. The reporter asked me simple things first: where I grew up, how I got into city work, what motivated me. I told her about my first construction job, about building sidewalks with a crew of men who'd survived layoffs, heat, and politics. Then she leaned forward, more curious now. "Mr. Reed, you've become something of a local hero. How does it feel to be recognized after so many years?" I looked into the camera. "Recognition's nice," I said, slow and clear, "but it doesn't fix a streetlight or keep a kid safe at the bus stop. The work matters. The applause fades." Marcus smiled behind the lens. He knew that tone. Calm, measured, final. After the interview, the reporter asked if she could get a shot of my hands. I stretched them out, palms open. "These?" I asked. "Yes," she said softly. "They tell a story." Later that night, Marcus edited the footage for the channel's digital piece. He added a title card: "Rough Hands, Strong City." The clip ran the next morning and spread faster than we expected. Churches played it at community breakfasts. Barbershops had it looping in the corner TVs. Kids shared it on their phones. It wasn't viral fame, it was local faith. But fame, even the quiet kind, has a way of stirring the wrong kind of attention. A week later, a letter arrived. This time not from the mayor's office, but from a private contractor. McKinley Urban Development. The kind of outfit that talked revitalization but meant gentrification. They offered me a consulting role. Big money, clean desk, fancy title. All I had to do was endorse their plan to redevelop the West Creek district, the same neighborhood that raised me, the same streets where I learned to fix fences and patch roofs. Marcus read it over my shoulder. "That's a big offer, Dad." "Too big," I said. He frowned. "You don't trust it?" "I trust patterns. When a company starts using words like new vision, it usually means someone's about to get pushed out." Still, I agreed to meet them. Sometimes you have to sit at the table to see what's being served. Their office downtown was all glass and marble, overlooking the skyline. The representative, a man named Caldwell, shook my hand hard, smiling too much. "Mr. Reed, you're exactly who we need. Respected, visible, rooted in the community." "I appreciate that," I said. "What's your plan for West Creek?" He turned the tablet toward me, showing mock-ups of sleek condos and manicured lawns. "A mixed-use development. Cleaner, safer, modern. We'll relocate current residents with full compensation." I leaned back. "Relocate how?" "Temporary housing, vouchers, city assistance." "Meaning?" "Meaning they won't be back." I closed the tablet. "Then I'm not your man." Caldwell blinked, still smiling. "You'd be well compensated." "I already am," I said. "In peace." He chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. "You're a man of principle, I see." "No," I said, standing up. "I'm a man with a memory." I left the office with my shoulders straight, the poetic city wind pressing warm against my jacket. Atlanta had seen too many promises buried under cement and ribbon cuttings that forgot their roots. I wasn't about to sign my own neighborhood away. That evening I drove to West Creek, stopped by the small church where I used to fix the roof every summer. The pastor, Reverend Cole, was sweeping the front steps. "Calvin?" he said, smiling wide. "Been a minute." "Reverend," I nodded. "Heard anything about a redevelopment plan?" He sighed. "They came by, talked fancy. Folks are worried." "They should be." We stood there watching the sunset over cracked sidewalks and small houses leaning with time. "Think they'll listen to you?" he asked. "They'll hear me," I said. "Listening's up to them." The next day, I requested a special slot at the city board meeting. Ms. Lawson agreed. When my turn came, I stood and unfolded a single page, the offer letter from McKinley. The room went quiet. "Gentlemen, ladies," I began, "I was offered $30,000 to endorse a project that would relocate hundreds of families. Good people, hard workers, the kind of folks whose sweat built the very streets you're paving over." Bryant shifted in his chair. "Mr. Reed, this isn't the platform for—" "With respect, sir, it's exactly the platform," I interrupted. "Because when the city forgets its people, it stops being a city. It becomes a business." The audience murmured. I set the letter down on the table. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to remind. We're not fixing neighborhoods if we're erasing them." Ms. Lawson nodded slowly, her voice firm. "Noted for the record, Mr. Reed." That night, I drove home in silence. Marcus was waiting on the porch. "You said no, didn't you, Belwa?" he applauded. "Loud enough for the city to hear," I said. He grinned. "You really don't know how to rest." "I rest just fine," I said. "After the right fight." He pulled out his phone. "They're already talking about it online. You trending on local feeds again. Hashtag hands of the city." I laughed. Didn't even know I had a hashtag. The night breeze carried the smell of rain. Somewhere thunder rolled soft and distant. I looked at my hands. Still rough, still honest. They'd built parks, schools, homes, and now, a reputation. But most of all, they'd built understanding. That silence, that patience, it wasn't weakness. It was strength, measured in years, not noise. As the first raindrops hit the porch railing, I said quietly, "Let them call it rough. The city knows better." The next morning smelled of wet pavement and rain-soaked magnolia leaves. The storm had rolled through Atlanta overnight, leaving everything glistening and washed clean. I sat on the porch again, watching the sun try to burn through the last of the clouds. The city looked tired, but alive, kind of like me. Marcus came out, camera already in hand. "Dad, I'm thinking of expanding the dock. Not just you, other builders too. You cool with that?" "Course," I said. "One story don't build a city." He smiled. "You sure don't want to be the focus?" "I already had my part. Now it's time to pass the mic." He nodded and started filming B-roll. The old toolbox, the porch swing creaking, my name still faintly visible on the City Hall program he'd framed. I sat there quietly, letting him work. A car slowed in front of the house. A woman stepped out, Ms. Lawson, wearing her sharp gray blazer and that half-smile of hers. "Morning, Mr. Reed." "Morning, ma'am. Coffee?" Wouldn't say no. Marcus poured her a cup, and she sat down across from me. "You stirred the pot again," she said, half joking. "Only when the recipe's wrong," I said. She laughed softly. "You know, the board's been talking. They want to name the new community garden after you." I blinked. "Why me?" "Because you built it, and because you keep showing people what the word community actually means." I didn't answer right away. My first thought wasn't pride. It was memory. My father used to work the rail yard on the west side, hands cracked from brake grease. He never got his name on anything but a paycheck. But he'd walk me down those tracks at sunset and say, "Boy, leave something standing when you're gone." Maybe this was that something. "I appreciate it," I said finally, "but only if the sign's small." She grinned. "You really don't like attention, do you?" "Attention fades," I said. "Work stays." After she left, Marcus set his camera down. "A garden with your name on it, Dad. That's big." "It's a patch of dirt with potential," I said. "Names don't grow flowers." He laughed. "You got a quote for everything." Years will do that to a man. Later that week, I went down to West Creek again. The ground where they planned the garden was still rough. Half weeds, half promise. Kids were playing nearby, their laughter cutting through the hum of traffic. I knelt, pressed my palm into the soil. It felt warm, forgiving. Y'all come help plant something this Saturday, I told the kids. If it grows, it's yours. They nodded, wide-eyed and eager. That night, I stopped by the small diner on Auburn Avenue for dinner. The same waitress, Darlene, had been serving there since the 90s. You look lighter, she said, pouring coffee. Maybe I am. You finally getting your flowers? She teased. Not yet, but I'm planting them. She smiled. You keep doing what you do, baby. The city needs men like you. Outside, the neon sign flickered, casting red light on the wet sidewalk. I walked past the mural of Dr. King on the brick wall and thought about how every generation leaves fingerprints, some loud, some quiet, all necessary. When I got home, Marcus was editing again. Dad, listen to this part. He played the new intro for the expanded documentary. My voice came through the speakers. Legacy ain't about being remembered. It's about being useful. He'd layered it over footage of me cutting the ribbon, the kids laughing at the playground, and the city skyline at sunset. It hit me in the chest. You did good, son, I said. He smiled. I learned from the best. That weekend, the garden project began. Neighbors came with gloves, shovels, and laughter. The smell of soil and barbecue filled the air. Ms. Lawson showed up with city volunteers. Reverend Cole blessed the space. Even Councilman Bryant showed face, smiling too wide, sweating through his suit. He shook my hand for the cameras. Mr. Reed, this is a fine thing you've done. We all did, I said. City's soil, city's hands. Marcus captured everything. The kids planting marigolds, old folks sharing stories, the soft rhythm of gospel from a portable speaker nearby. For once, the city felt like one heartbeat. As the sun set, Marcus leaned over. Dad, can you say something for the closing shot? I looked around at the people, the garden, the fading light. Then I said quietly, this is what rough hands can do. Build peace from work. The crowd clapped. Not because it was planned, but because it was true. That night I sat alone on the porch again. The stars were faint above the streetlights, the hum of life still steady. I thought about my son's laughter, my father's lessons, and the garden that would grow long after I was gone. The phone buzzed. A message from Ms. Lawson. City Council approved your community recognition plaque. Installation scheduled next month. ML. I typed back, make it simple, just the name, nothing fancy. She replied, you're impossible. I smiled, only consistent. Marcus came out, barefoot, leaning on the doorframe. You still awake? Too much peace to sleep, he chuckled. You think Mom would have liked all this? She would have said I finally learned how to slow down, he laughed. You, never. The porch light flickered as a breeze passed through. Somewhere a train horn called from the distance, low and steady. I looked at my hands again, still rough, still steady, and whispered, guess they weren't too rough, after all. By the time summer settled in, the garden was blooming. Rows of marigolds, collard greens, and tomatoes stretched under the Atlanta sun, each leaf carrying a kind of quiet testimony. Every Saturday, kids came with water jugs, their laughter breaking the heat. Old men leaned on fences, offering advice nobody asked for but everyone respected. They'd started calling it Reed Garden, even before the plaque went up. I didn't mind, long as they kept it alive. Marcus was filming everything. Interviews with the gardeners, time lapses of seeds turning green. You see this, Dad? He said one afternoon, camera pressed to his eye. This is legacy in motion. Legacy's only real if it survives winter, I said. He grinned. You and your metaphors. That day a letter came again, certified mail, official seal. This time from the Department of City Integrity. I frowned, opening it. Inside, a notice. An anonymous complaint has been filed regarding the allocation of public funds connected to the City Beautification Board. Marcus read over my shoulder. They're saying you mishandled money. Seems that way. That's crazy. You don't even handle the money. Doesn't matter, I said quietly. They just need my name in the rumor. I folded the paper neatly, set it on the table. Marcus, go on with your work. I'll handle this. 2 days later, I was in a downtown office under flickering fluorescent lights. The investigator, a young man named Daniels, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. Mr. Reed, this is standard procedure, a formality. Understand, I said. We just need to verify your signature on a few project expenses. He slid a stack of papers across the desk. I looked through each page, bemoped. Invoices, purchase orders, receipts. One stood out. A catering charge for a community luncheon I never authorized. $4,800. Signed, Calvin Reed. That's not my signature, I said, calm but firm. Daniels nodded. I thought so. I compared it with your filings on record. It's a forgery, but we still have to document the process. Who filed the complaint? He hesitated. Anonymous, but the attached memo originated from Councilman Bryant's office. I smiled, not surprised. Then you'll find what you need in my records, filed at the county recorder's office. Case number 2025-11873. He blinked. That same case number keeps popping up in your documents. It's my trail, I said. Paper doesn't lie. He smiled faintly. Wish more people were that organized. Wish more people believed in truth, I replied. When I left the building, the air outside was thick with August heat. I stood under a shade tree, feeling the sweat roll down my neck. I wasn't angry, just tired of how slow honesty moves in this world. Marcus was waiting in the truck. How'd it go? Same dance, different tune, I said. He shook his head. Brian again? Seems the man don't like rough hands touching clean money. You gonna fight it? I smiled. Already have. My proof's older than his lies. That night, I pulled the old folder from the safe. Every record, every receipt, every note since I started on City Hall, all neatly dated and notarized. I scanned them and emailed copies to Daniels. Then I sat back, sipping cold coffee, listening to the hum of the night. By morning, the phone rang. Mr. Reed, this is Daniels. We reviewed your documents. Everything checks out. The charges are cleared. Appreciate that, I said. And boat. More thing, he added. We traced the forgery to an assistant in Bryant's office. He's under investigation now. I hung up slow. The house was quiet, but it felt lighter, like the truth had opened a window. Marcus walked in, stretching. Good news? Best kind, I said. The kind that ends with a signature. He grinned. Dad, I'm adding that line to the film. You do that. Maybe folks will start keeping better records. 2 weeks later, the city held a small ceremony at the garden to unveil the plaque. No reporters this time, just neighbors and a few city folks. Ms. Lawson gave a short speech, simple and proud. This garden stands as proof that good work can't be buried. Not by time, not by politics, not by noise. When she pulled the cloth away, I saw it. A metal plaque, clean and modest. Reed Community Garden for the hands that build and the hearts that keep building. I felt a lump in my throat. Marcus caught the moment on camera. The kids clapped, the elders nodded, and somewhere in the back, I saw Bryant's aide lowering his gaze. After the crowd left, I stayed a while. The garden hummed with crickets and wind. A little girl tugged my sleeve, holding up a tiny tomato. Mr. Reed, look, my first one. I smiled, crouched low. Then you're a builder now, too. She grinned and ran off, ponytail bouncing in the golden light. Marcus came beside me, his camera hanging loose. You think all this will last, Dad? I watched the garden, rose swaying softly. As long as people remember why it started. He nodded. That's why I'm filming. Then we're covered, I said. That night I filed one last paper. Not for the city, for myself. A notarized letter addressed to Marcus, in case the world forgets. These hands built something that mattered. Signed, your father, Calvin Reed. I sealed it in an envelope, tucked it beside my wife's Bible, and smiled. Some stories don't need endings. They just keep working. By early fall, the air turned soft again. The city heat had gentled into a warm breeze, carrying the smell of grilled corn and pine from weekend cookouts. The garden was alive, full grown now, thick vines, heavy fruit, laughter tucked into every corner. I'd started showing up just to watch. Didn't need to lead anymore. The kids handled the watering schedules, the church ladies managed the produce table, and Marcus kept showing up with his camera, always saying, "Just one more scene, Dad." One afternoon, as I sat on the bench beneath the oak tree, an older man walked up. Gray suit, crisp tie, walking cane polished like glass. He looked familiar, one of those faces from City Hall you never forget. "Mr. Reed," he said. "Mind if I sit?" "Not at all." He lowered himself beside me, taking a breath. "Name's Samuels. Used to work with the mayor's office years ago. I read about you in the Tribune." I nodded. "Those reporters like stirring dust," he smiled. "Sometimes dust needs stirring. You made a point, quietly. The city needs more of that." We sat a while, listening to the children play. He tapped his cane lightly on the ground. "Tell me something, Mr. Reed. After all this, the work, the respect, the battles, what keeps you going?" I looked out over the garden, seeing proof that effort still matters. He nodded. "That's rare these days." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "The mayor's retiring soon. She wants to nominate someone to head the new Community Works Initiative. Paid position. You'd oversee neighborhood restoration projects across the city." I blinked. "Me? I'm no office man." He chuckled. "Maybe that's why you're perfect for it." I took the envelope, heavy with official stationery. "I'll think on it." "I figured you would," he said, standing. "Just don't take too long. The city runs faster than it listens." After he left, Marcus walked over, camera still rolling. "What was that?" "Opportunity," I said. "You taking it?" "I don't know yet." He tilted his head. "You scared?" I smiled. "I'm cautious. There's a difference." That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the offer open in front of me. Director of Community Works Initiative. Good pay, real influence. But it came with meetings, politics, and paperwork thicker than faith. I'd built things with my hands, not pens. The next morning I visited Reverend Cole. His office smelled of old wood and lemon oil. He poured coffee and waited. "Reverend," I said, "they want me to run a city program. Restore neighborhoods." He smiled. "That sounds like a blessing." "Or a trap," I said. "I don't know which yet." He nodded slowly. "That's discernment, brother, but don't let fear dress itself up as humility." I sat with that. When I got home, Marcus was editing again. The new documentary had picked up traction. "Dad," he said, "Channel 8 wants to run your story next month. They called it The Builder's Quiet Revenge." I laughed. "Sounds dramatic," he grinned. "That's how folks listen." He played a new clip, my voice layered over shots of the ribbon cutting, the garden, the city skyline. "They called my hands rough. I call them records of grace." I stared at the screen. The image cut to Marcus, helping a kid plant a seed. For a moment, I saw everything in one frame: work, legacy, and love. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went out to the porch. The moon hung over Atlanta, pale and patient. My old hands rested on the railing. I remembered my father's voice again. "Leave something standing when you're gone." Maybe this new role wasn't politics. Maybe it was purpose with a louder microphone. Next morning, I walked into City Hall again. Same polished doors, same scent of wax and marble. But this time, the guard recognized me. "Morning, Mr. Reed," he said, smiling. "Morning, son." I found Ms. Lawson in her office, surprised but pleased. "Calvin," she said, "you're early." "I came to give you my answer." She raised her eyebrows. "And?" "I'll take the job. But on one condition, I want full access to the records. Every contractor, every budget, every property log." She grinned. "You really trust paper more than people, huh?" "Paper don't lie," I said. The first week was quiet. I learned the system, met the staff, reviewed old contracts, but by week 2, I noticed something strange. Discrepancies in project funds. Minor, but patterned. Too neat to be accidents. Marcus stopped by one evening. "How's the new job treating you?" "Like old wood," I said. "Looks solid till you knock on it." "You thinking corruption?" "I'm thinking somebody forgot I know how to read blueprints." The next day, I cross-checked vendor payments. 2 invoices caught my eye. McKinley Urban Development, the same company that tried to buy me months ago. Still active, now under restructuring. Only this time, their projects were marked approved, stamped with Bryant's digital signature. I printed the pages, set them aside. Not anger, not shock, just confirmation. That evening, I called Ms. Lawson. "We got leftovers from old projects still leaking into new ones." She sighed. "Bryant again? Always is. You want me to intervene?" "No," I said. "Just keep the files safe. I'll handle the rest." Later that night, Marcus filmed me sorting papers at the table. "Dad, you look like a detective." "Builders and detectives ain't that different," I said. "We both deal with what's buried." He laughed but didn't stop filming. By the weekend, I had everything I needed. Stamped copies, timestamps, and case numbers linking Bryant's office to unauthorized transfers. It wasn't revenge I wanted, it was correction. A man's legacy deserves clean soil. Sunday morning, I slipped the folder into my briefcase and headed to church. Reverend Cole caught me at the door. "You look heavy, brother." "Truth's a little weighty sometimes," he nodded. "Then carry it careful, but don't drop it." During the service, the choir sang, "Walk with me, Lord." I closed my eyes. Every note felt like a promise, not of victory, but of peace through endurance. After church, I drove past the garden again. The kids were there, still planting, still laughing, and I realized, whatever storm was coming, the roots were deep enough to hold. Monday came dressed in sunlight, but carried the weight of business. I walked into City Hall early, briefcase in hand, papers ready. The air smelled faintly of coffee and floor polish, same scent I'd known since the day of the ribbon cutting. Bryant was already in the conference room, his tie too bright for that hour, his grin thinner than his patience. "Morning, Mr. Reed," he said. "Heard you've been keeping busy." "Always," I said. "Work doesn't rest." He gestured for me to sit. "We've got a proposal to review. McKinley's final phase of redevelopment. They're rebranding as South Point Urban Renewal. Should be straightforward." I looked at the packet, flipping to the back pages. Same structure, same numbers, same padded line items. "Straightforward, huh?" I said, running a finger over one signature. He leaned forward. "Is there a problem?" I met his eyes. "Only if we're pretending not to see one." The room went quiet. Ms. Lawson looked between us, uneasy. "Maybe we should table this for the next session." "Good idea," I said, standing. "I'll have my written report ready." As I left the room, Bryant's voice followed me. "Careful, Reed. You're not on the crew anymore. You're in politics now." I turned just enough to look at him. "That's your mistake, Councilman. I'm still on the crew, just building higher." That night, I took the papers home. Marcus was on the couch, laptop open, editing again. "You're working late," he said. "Always," I replied. "And you?" "Final Cut's almost done. I'm sending it to a festival next week." "That's good," I said. "People need to see what quiet work looks like." He paused the video. "You okay, Dad? You've been tense lately." I smiled. "Truth's close. That makes people nervous." "You sure you want to keep pushing this Bryant thing? You've already cleared your name once." "This isn't about my name," I said. "It's about the cities. I spent the next 3 days gathering proof. Cross-checked signatures, invoice numbers, and time-stamped memos. Bryant's fingerprints were all over them, subtle but sloppy. Each document a brick in a quiet wall of truth. By Friday, I sent an official report to the Office of City Integrity. Attached files, clear summary, no emotion. Just facts. Paper against politics. Saturday morning, Marcus woke me early. "Dad, you need to see this." He turned his laptop around. On the local news site, city investigation launched into South Point, urban renewal contracts. Below the headline, a photo of Bryant, red-eyed, tight-jawed. I read the first lines slowly. Following a detailed report submitted by Community Works Director Calvin Reed, officials have opened an inquiry into irregularities within city redevelopment funds. Marcus grinned wide. You did it again. I didn't smile. No, son, the paperwork did. By Monday, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, activists, even old coworkers calling to say they'd seen the story. Ms. Lawson came by my office mid-afternoon, half proud, half worried. Bryant's furious, she said. He's demanding a review of your position. Let him, I said. I've got the county recorder and timestamps on my side. She laughed softly. You really believe faith and files can fix a city? They're the only things that ever did. That night I drove to the garden. Needed quiet. The sun was setting behind the rooftops, the air warm and steady. The kids were gone. The place was still. I walked between the rows, touching the leaves lightly. Each one hummed with life. I heard footsteps behind me. Marcus, of course, camera in hand. Don't film this one, I said. He nodded, turning the lens away. We sat on the bench beneath the oak. You think they'll fire you? He asked Ed. Maybe, I said, but I'd rather lose a chair than my name. He looked down. You always say things like that, like it's scripture. It's just work talk, I said. Same thing, really. The night air was cool, the smell of cut grass mixed with the faint sweetness of tomatoes still ripening. I thought of my father again, how he'd come home from the rail yard with dust in his hair, but peace in his eyes. He'd never raised his voice, never chased status, just left things better than he found them. That was the kind of revenge I wanted, the lasting kind. The next morning, the mayor called. Her voice was calm, deliberate. Mr. Reed, I read your report. You did the city a service. I just filed what was already true, I said. Still, she continued, truth needs someone to carry it. Bryant has resigned. We'll be conducting an audit of all current redevelopment projects. I closed my eyes for a second. Not triumph, relief. Thank you, ma'am. Also, she added, I'd like you to stay on. The board needs integrity more than ever. After the call, I sat back, staring at the sunlight across my desk. On the wall hung the framed photo from City Hall, me cutting the ribbon, Marcus smiling in the background. I traced the edge of the frame with my thumb and whispered, Looks like we built something after all. That evening, Marcus uploaded one final update to his documentary page. Title, Hands That Built Justice. The thumbnail showed me in front of the garden, papers in hand, city skyline behind me. He turned the screen toward me. What do you think? It's honest, I said. That's all I wanted, he replied. We sat in silence for a while, the hum of the ceiling fan cutting through the quiet. Then he said, You ever wish you'd done things differently, Dad? Maybe fought louder? I shook my head. Louder doesn't mean stronger. Some battles are won in ink, not in shouting. He smiled, eyes soft. You know, when I was a kid, I thought your hands were just tools. Now I see they were teachers. I chuckled. About time you learned the lesson. Outside, thunder rumbled far away. Not a storm, just weather moving on. The city lights flickered alive, one by one, steady and sure. I leaned back, feeling that deep, quiet peace again. Rough hands had built a city, and this time the city had finally built something back. Autumn came to Atlanta like a long exhale. The air cooled, the light softened, and the trees turned the streets into rivers of copper and gold. I'd walk to the garden most mornings before work, coffee in hand, breathing in that early calm that the city rarely gives for free. The plaque caught the light just right at that hour. For the hands that build and the hearts that keep building. Every time I read it, I felt equal parts pride and quiet disbelief. Marcus met me there one morning, camera hanging from his neck but off. Dad, he said, I've been thinking. The doc's going national. PBS wants to feature it in their community series. I blinked. National? Yeah, you'll be on TV across the country. I laughed, shaking my head. I spent 40 years behind the camera's focus. Now it wants to chase me? He grinned. That's how justice works sometimes. Comes around with better lighting. He sat beside me on the bench. The garden buzzed with bees. You ready for that kind of attention? I'm ready for whatever gives truth a longer reach. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. I don't think you realize how many people you've helped. You didn't just build places. You built pride. Folks are talking about you in D.C., Dad. They're saying Atlanta found its quiet leader. Quiet's the best kind, I said. Noise fades fast. Later that day, I headed into the office. Things had calmed since Bryant's resignation. The staff greeted me differently now, not like a worker who'd wandered into a boardroom, but like someone who'd earned his chair through storms. Ms. Lawson was already there, reviewing plans. Morning, Calvin, she said. We've got approval to start 2 new projects, both named under your initiative. Which ones? West Creek Housing Restoration and the Pine Hollow Youth Center. I smiled. Good names. Let's make them mean something. We spent hours poring over budgets, permits, designs. I marked details the younger planners missed. Uneven costs, supplier gaps, missing signatures. Every correction was small justice. At noon, a delivery came, a brown envelope marked personal. I opened it and froze. Inside, a single photo. Me shaking hands with Bryant from the first board meeting. Someone had drawn an X across my face in red marker. No note, no signature. Ms. Lawson saw my expression. What's wrong? Nothing, I said quietly, folding it back into the envelope. Just someone trying to make noise. That night I didn't tell Marcus. Some things don't need to live in his head. But I did scan the envelope, logged it in my personal archive. If there was one thing life had taught me, paper outlives threats. The next week we broke ground on the youth center. Kids from the neighborhood gathered around the taped-off area, clapping as the first shovel hit dirt. I made sure every child got a turn to dig, even if it was just symbolic. The cameras clicked, but I didn't look at them. My eyes were on the children, bright, loud, unbroken. Marcus was filming again, catching everything in that patient documentary style. Afterward, he pulled me aside. Dad, what do you think Mom would say if she saw all this? I smiled softly. She'd tell me I took too long to get here. He laughed. You miss her? Every morning. But she's in all this. Every wall, every root, every word. That evening I drove home through downtown. The skyline shimmered like a promise. I stopped at a red light near City Hall, the same spot where the journey had started. The ribbon was long gone, but in my mind I could still hear the faint applause, see Marcus's astonished smile. At home I poured myself a glass of iced tea and opened the old folder again. Everything I'd kept since the start, from project blueprints to the first letter Marcus wrote after the ceremony. The paper edges had softened with time, but the ink still held strong. There was one new addition, a letter from the mayor's office. Mr. Reed, we invite you to receive the City Service Medal at next month's Civic Awards. I read it twice, then a third time. My first instinct was to decline. I'd always believed service should speak for itself. But then I thought about Marcus, about the garden, about those kids at Pine Hollow who might one day read the program and see that a man with rough hands could still hold a Medal of Honor. When Marcus came home, I handed him the letter. You gonna accept it? He asked. I think I will. He smiled wide. About time the city caught up. The following Sunday, Reverend Cole mentioned it in his sermon. Sometimes, he said, the Lord lifts the quiet builders, the ones who never asked for applause, because he knows the foundation won't crack under pride. After service, the whole congregation surrounded me, hugging, clapping, laughing. Even old Darlene from the diner was there. See, baby, she said, you finally getting your flowers. I smiled. Nah, just tending the garden. A few days later, the city paper ran a headline. Calvin Reed to receive Atlanta Service Medal for Community Restoration. They used a photo of me at the garden, smiling faintly, sleeves rolled up, dirt on my hands. Marcus said it was perfect. But the night before the ceremony, I couldn't sleep. I stood in the kitchen, staring out the window at the city, lights flickering in the distance. Somewhere out there, 1,000 hands were still working. Janitors, drivers, builders, cleaners, folks who'd never see a headline, never get a plaque. I whispered into the dark, "This one's for all of you." Marcus found me there at dawn. "You ready?" "Almost," I said. "Just needed a moment." He smiled. "You still nervous about speeches?" "Always will be," I said. "But maybe this one ain't mine alone." When we left the house, the morning sun was rising slow, wrapping the city in gold. The air smelled of new beginnings, an old work, sweat, earth, and a promise kept. Rough hands or not, I felt ready. The morning of the ceremony felt quieter than it should have. Atlanta's traffic still moved, horns still called, but something about that day carried a hush, like the city itself was holding its breath. Marcus drove us downtown. He wore a dark suit for once, camera bag in the back seat. "You know," he said, "Mom would have loved this." I smiled. "She'd probably be fussing with my tie right now." He laughed. "Yeah, and reminding you to smile more." I chuckled. "Then let's not disappoint her." When we pulled up to City Hall, the air was cool, clean. I could see the banners stretched above the doors. City of Atlanta Civic Service Awards. The same polished brass handles I'd touched years ago still gleamed under the morning sun. Inside, the hall was full. Community workers, teachers, firefighters, city staff, familiar faces, and a few I'd helped along the way. I saw Ms. Lawson waving from the front. Reverend Cole sat near the aisle, his Bible on his lap. Marcus leaned in. "You nervous?" "Always," I said, "but I've been through worse storms than applause." When the mayor took the podium, her voice carried calm authority. "Today, we honor those who didn't wait for praise to do good. People whose hands changed this city's heart." She paused, scanning the crowd. Few fit that better than Mr. Calvin Reed. The applause was warm, not wild, steady, genuine. I stood feeling the weight of every year, every hammer strike, every unrecorded hour that led to that walk up the stage. The mayor shook my hand. "Mr. Reed," she said softly, "your work reminds us that leadership doesn't always wear a suit." "Appreciate that, ma'am," I said. She placed the medal around my neck, heavy, cool metal against old skin. The light from the ceiling caught it just right. Cameras flashed, but I wasn't looking at them. I looked toward Marcus, standing behind his lens, smiling like a man watching his past and future shake hands. When it was my turn to speak, I stepped up to the microphone. The crowd waited. I took a slow breath. "I never thought I'd be here," I began. Not because I doubted the work, but because I thought the work was enough. I let the silence settle before continuing. "These hands," I said, lifting them slightly, "they've built sidewalks, parks, benches, gardens. They've held tools, prayers, and once or twice anger. But mostly they've held patience. Because patience, not noise, builds cities that last." Someone in the crowd said, "Amen." "I used to think my son didn't understand these hands," I said, voice soft. "He called them rough once. And maybe they were. But rough ain't. The same as wrong. Rough means real. Rough means earned." Marcus lowered the camera a little, his eyes shining. "The truth is," I said, "I didn't build this city alone. Every brick, every nail, every form filed at the county recorder's office, case number 225 on 11873, stands for someone who worked quietly so others could stand tall. This medal's for them." The hall filled with applause, slow and rhythmic, like the sound of steady hammers on strong wood. After the ceremony, people lined up to shake my hand. Young workers, old colleagues, even strangers who'd seen the documentary. One woman held my hand longer than the rest. "My father worked with you at Public Works," she said. "He passed last year. He would have been proud." I nodded. "Then this belongs to him too." Outside, the sunlight felt different, warmer, wider. Reporters crowded near, but I waved them off. Marcus caught up, camera hanging loose, grinning ear to ear. "You killed that speech," he said. "I spoke plain," I said. "That's enough." We walked down the steps together. I stopped halfway and turned around. From there I could see the reflection of the ribbon in the glass doors. The same image that started it all. Marcus noticed. "What are you thinking, Dad?" "Just remembering how full circles work," I said. "They don't always close where they start, but they end where they're meant to." He nodded slowly. "You done building?" I smiled. "Never. Just changing tools." That evening we held a small cookout at the garden. The smell of charcoal and sweet sauce filled the air. Neighbors laughed. Kids chased fireflies between the flower beds. Ms. Lawson brought a cake that said, "Thank you, Mr. Reed." I sat under the oak tree, metal resting against my chest. Marcus joined me, handing over a plate. "You gonna keep that thing on?" "Till it feels like it belongs," I said. He laughed. "It already does." As the sky darkened, the first stars began to push through the purple. The garden lights flickered on, casting a soft glow over the rows of vegetables and flowers. I could hear gospel humming from someone's speaker, a song my wife used to play. "We've come this far by faith." I closed my eyes for a moment. I saw her face. I saw my father's calloused hands. I saw Marcus's smile. All of it lined up like the steps of a long, patient journey. When I opened my eyes, Marcus had the camera pointed at me again. "Final shot," he said. "What do you want me to say?" He smiled. "Whatever feels true." I looked into the lens, voice steady. Legacy isn't what people remember about you. It's what they keep building after you're gone. These hands may be rough, but they built peace. And peace, son, peace lasts longer than revenge. He lowered the camera slowly, his eyes glistening. "Perfect," he whispered. I looked out over the garden one last time. The rose, the soil, the laughter floating into the night, and felt something gentle, something sacred settle in my chest. I wasn't just cutting ribbons anymore. I was tying generations together. If this story spoke to you, like the video, subscribe and share your thoughts below.